Hello, welcome to jQuery tutorial, chapter 8, jQuery attribute selector, brought to you by Ankpro Technologies. My name is Harish. In this session, we are going to learn about the jQuery attribute selectors. So the jQuery attribute selector, that is, we are going to select an element by the attribute or by the attribute value. So here you can find the syntax to this factory function, or this within this dollar function, jQuery function. What we are passing is, we are passing the attribute within the square brackets. So in the sense, we are going to identify an element by the attribute, okay, and also we can identify the element by the attribute value. So these are the two things we're going to learn in this session, like how we can identify an element by the attribute and also by the value specified to the attribute. So without wasting much time, let me jump into the next slide, and here comes the examples, and we are going to see these examples very clearly right now. So let me go with the first example. Within the jQuery function, we are passing the title attribute. So what it does is, it selects all the elements that have title attribute. So let me jump to Visual Studio and let me show you. Okay, now what I'll do is, let me create a div element, and to the div element let me add content called hello, and after that let me add a break line, and let me take a paragraph element and let me tell world. Okay, after that let me take a break line, let me take another element, that is h3. Okay, let me tell it the content as Sam. Now what I'll do is, to this I'll pass a title telling like sample. Okay, let me copy and paste the title same to all the elements present here. So now what I need to do is, I need to identify an element, okay, which is having the title attribute. So how can I do that with the help of jQuery? It's very simple. What I'll do is, I'll write a script. First I'll check whether my document is completely loaded or not with the help of document.ready function. Document.ready. Once the DOM is completely loaded, what I'm doing is, I'm writing a function. This function, what it's going to do is, it is going to identify an element which is having the attribute title. So how do I do that? It's very simple. First I need to dollar, then I need to tell like, okay, identify an element which is having the attribute title. So once it is identified, add a CSS. I'm calling the CSS method. I'm telling like apply border, okay, with 5 pixel solid red. Okay, now let me explain this piece of code what I've written. I'm having three elements, that is div element, paragraph element, sorry, I'm having the div element, okay, then paragraph element, then h3 element. So the div element is having the title sample, and paragraph element is having the title sample, and h3 element, it is having the title and the value is sample. So what I'm doing right now in my jQuery, what are the jQuery code I've written right now, what it does is, it identifies an element which is having the title attribute. Here my all three elements, div, paragraph and h3 elements, are having the title attribute. So what's going to happen is, it's going to apply the border of 5 pixel solid red to all the elements present here. So now what I need to do is, I need to push this page to the browser. So let me press Ctrl F5. So once it is done, it takes me to the browser. My browser is Chrome. So the build has succeeded, you can observe here, and now it is pushing this page to the browser. So here you can observe very clearly. So let me expand this. So here you can observe very clearly hello, world and Sam. So hello is div element, world is paragraph element, and the Sam is h3 element. So here it's applying, you can observe very clearly, here is applying 5 pixel solid red to all the elements present here. Why? Because what we have written in our jQuery code is, identify an element which is having the title attribute, then apply the CSS what I've specified here, and that's what is happening here, and that's the example. Okay, selects all the elements that have title attribute. That's what I'm doing here. I'm selecting all the elements which is having the title attribute, and I'm applying my CSS of border 5 pixel solid red. So let me go back here to my presentation. So here you can come to the second example. So what I'm specified is, within this jQuery function, I'm telling like div, and within the brackets, square brackets, I'm specifying the title. What happens here is, okay, the jQuery selector, it selects all the div elements that have the title attribute. So in my example, Okay, I'm having only one due and it is having the title attribute. So let me take another due. So let me tell demo, the content is demo. Now what I need to do is I need to tell to my jQuery code, identify the due element which is having the title attribute. Here in my example I'm having two due elements, but only to the first due element I'm having the title attribute. So what's going to happen now is only to the first due element it's going to apply this CSS what we have specified, it is border 5 pixel solid red. So how do I identify? First I have to specify the due, then followed by the square brackets and the attribute name. The attribute name here is title. So when I execute this piece of code, or when I push this page to the browser, what happens is to the first due it's going to apply border of 5 pixel solid red. Okay, because we have specified in the selector, select a due element which is having the attribute title, and this is the due element which is having the title attribute. So let me go back and let me refresh. Here you can observe only the first due element, okay, which is having the title attribute is getting 5 pixel solid red border. Okay, and that's the meaning of this example, whatever I explained right now. Okay, now we saw like how to identify an element by the attribute. Now we are going to see from these last two examples, we are going to identify an element by the attribute value. So keep in mind this what I specified here, within the jQuery function I'm having the square brackets, title is equal to sample. Here the value of the title is sample. So what I need to do is it selects all elements that have title attribute value as sample. So how do I do that? It's very simple. Let me go here, let me remove this, and I'm going to specify here, identify an element which is having the sample. Okay, identify an element which is having the title attribute, and that title attribute should have the value sample. So just for change I'll give the title to this as sample, or let me give it as paragraph para title, and this is heading title. Okay, to this also let me add a sample, but this is sample 1. Okay, let me give this title as sample itself. So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to identify an element which is having the title attribute. So here all my elements are having a title attribute, but we are filtering there. What we are doing is we are going to apply this CSS only if the title attribute value is sample. So in my example, my due element and my h3 element is having the title attribute value as sample. So this CSS what we have written is going to apply only to the due as well as to the h3 element. So let me do Ctrl S. Let me go back and let me refresh. Here you can observe my due element as well as my h3 element is getting border 5 pixel solid red. Why? Because these two elements are having the attribute value, that is title value, as sample. So we are getting the output as expected. Like only to these elements we are getting the border 5 pixel solid red. So let me go back again. Let me come here. Okay, the last one. So what this tells us, like within the jQuery function is specifying the title and the value is sample, but we are specifying the extra thing here, due. So what happens here is it selects all the due elements that have the title attribute value as sample. So let me go back to my Visual Studio, and here you can observe what we do right now is we selected all the h1, all the elements present here which is having the title attribute and the value as sample. So we got two of them with the title value sample. But right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select only the due element which is having the title attribute and the value as sample. So right now I'm having only one due which is having the title attribute and the value as sample. So how do I filter out? It's very simple. I have to pass due here. So what this piece of code is going to do is first it identifies the due element. Yes, we have two due elements, but we have specified here it should have title attribute. Yes, these two dues are having the title attributes, but the value should be sample. So this due title's value is sample 1 and this does not match. Only this due is having the title sample as expected. So it's going to apply the border 5 pixel solid red only to this due. Okay, now let me go back and let me refresh. You can observe, okay, we'll get only the border to the first due, not to the second one. Okay, this is how we are going to identify an element by the attribute as well as the attribute value. Okay, and that's for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel Ankpro Training. You can also like our Facebook page visiting this URL. You can also follow us on Twitter. For further reference, refer our websites. We are on LinkedIn too. Last but not the least, please don't forget to give the feedback. Thank you. Have a great day.